Okay, so number one, which participants must have an objective assessment? So we have choice A says all youth participant, choice B, all adults and dislocated workers, C, only participants receiving training, or D, both A and B. And the correct answer, as 89% of our participants here answered, is D, both A and B. All participants must have a completed objective assessment uploaded into WorkSource Georgia portal. Okay, number two was true or false. Every participant should have an objective assessment uploaded in the WorkSource Georgia portal. The answer is true. And finally, number three, and this is true or false as well. An objective assessment does not have to be updated, and that is false. I think it was on the slide before the examples where we mentioned that the updates can take place via case note. You can do an addendum to the existing objective assessment, or you can upload a new objective assessment.
One question is the objective assessment and the IEP, are those two separate processes?
Yes. The objective assessment is kind of like the foundation. And as Terrence and Cherie will speak about when they talk about ISS and the IEP, they will say it's built on to the objective assessment. And then I think I saw another question. It asked about the electronic objective assessment being signed by the participant. That is correct. It has to be signed by the participant as well as the LWDA staff.
Are we actively looking for behaviors, or are we asking the participant about behaviors that they feel they exhibit that may be barriers or cause concerns? Speaking about the behavior observation portion, sorry, I'm trying to, again, get to where I can see the whole thing. In parentheses, speaking about the behavior observation portion of the objective assessment. You want me to repeat that?
No, that's a great question. So, okay. So that would be just through your observation while you're doing intake, how you can observe like body language. If they have it documented, for example, for youth, if they've received some type of IEP through their school and you observe it, like it's documented, or from a doctor or whatever. But this particular example where I was listing it and the tools to build the objective assessment, this particular example was talking about their body language and what you observe when you're doing your intake.
Is this supposed to be done during intake? Who is doing the assessment, navigators or career advisors? So first part of that question is the objective assessment, is this being done during intake?
So the objective assessment is typically conducted once the participant has been deemed eligible. So however your LWDA has that structured. I can't say that this is an intake specialist conducting the objective assessment because it varies from LWDA to the next. Cherie, do you want to add to that?
Intake looks different across the state. Many of you know we worked on standardizing intake and eligibility back in 2019. So it does look different. So your LWDA would just have to define at what point you want to begin or do your objective assessment from what your intake process looks like.
So is that going to be true with the second part of that question as well? Who is doing the assessment, navigators or career advisors? Is it going to just depend on
that
also area?
Go to the local area. I'm not, every position title has different job functions. As at the state, we do not manage that. If there's a career advisor or career specialist, we don't manage that process. So again, that would take place at your local area.
Is this after the participant is created in the portal?
Yes, so you can use the objective assessment that is generated in WorkSource Georgia portal to complete your objective assessment. So yes.
So I'm Terrence Hell, and let's go ahead and review these poll questions. Question number 1, which participants receive an individual service strategy? All right, and most of us got it correct with only youth participants. That is correct, only youth participants. For question number 2, who must sign the ISS? Our options here are only the case manager, both the youth participant and the case manager, or the parent if the participant is under 18 years of age, or finally, both B and C. And the correct answer is both B and C. Thank you. Now, the third and final one is a true or false question. And we got 100% on that. Training and supportive service needs must be identified on the ISS. And that is correct. Good job, everyone. The ISS considered the same as the IEP, or is it different? That's a really good question. The ISS, the primary difference between the ISS is that the ISS is particularly for the youth participants, and IEP for the for adults. However, there are some different some small differences in between as far as some of the additional required information that may have been identified through the objective assessment. You should have a separate ISS. You should have an ISS, and you should have an IEP form to identify all the required items for each particular one.
Mary, I think Mary's question is asking, should a youth have an IEP and an ISS? And so that to answer to that question is the youth would only have an objective assessment in an ISS. Adults and dislocated workers should have an objective assessment in an IEP. All right, so question 1, who must sign the IEP? 100% got that right, and that is both A and B, both the participant as well as the case manager and or whomever that title of that individual assigned to the case manager, to the participant. We do understand it may not be a case manager, it may be a career advisor, whatever that title is. Or the LWDA can change who signs it as well. It could be the director. How can the IEP be updated? So that can be updated via case note, as well as you can print out the existing IEP and update it and then re-upload that into the WorkSource Georgia portal. Lastly, I guess this must have been a trick question. The LWDA creates the IEP, then shares it with the participant. That would be false. The IEP should be created in collaboration or partnership with that participant. And I will jump to the chat box. So Charmaine asks, in BOSS, it is listed as the individual employment plan / the service strategy. When entered, so it records in the same place. When monitored, does this meet the ISS youth requirement and the IEP adult requirement? And that answer is yes. So when we're monitoring those case files, when we identify if it's a youth case file or an adult case file, and from there, when we go to that section in the WorkSource Georgia portal, we will look for those requirements that are needed. So the answer to that question would be yes. Joshua asks, does it matter if the IEP OAs are signed in the system, or is it okay to have them printed out and signed and then uploaded? So yeah, whatever process your LWDA creates, that makes the most sense for you all, but there must be a signature signed by both the staff as well as that participant. So if you want to create it in the system, print it out, have them sign it and upload it, that works as well. Also with COVID, we talked earlier last year about the electronic signatures on those documentations as well. Okay, Latanya, she asked, please discuss documenting OAs, IEPs, and ISSs as it relates to those participants with disabilities. How best to separate information in a physical file versus in the WorkSource Georgia portal? Great question, Latanya. So there should be no information uploaded in the WorkSource Georgia portal that discloses an individual's disability. So ways that I've seen it is in you know, the IEP, the ISS, the objective assessment is created if there is information regarding an individual or a participant's disability. It's printed off. That section has been blacked out, and then there's been a note on the form that says, you know, to request the documentation from the LWDA. And with that information blacked out, it's been uploaded in the system. And of course, in the actual physical case file locked up following the proper protocol for how to store that disability information, or that information related to the individual's disabilities, we can request it if needed. We've seen it not included on there, and maybe it's just documented separately. If you want to put in that section to that you want us to request it from you if needed. So however, whatever kind of protocol you guys have, but no information should be in the Worksource Georgia portal that discloses or as it relates to a disability from a participant. It all should be locked up and stowed with a key. Following our state policy as well. So Latanya, let me know if I answered that question correctly. Again, if you want to update that ISS and that objective assessment or that IEP, and you want to update it with information that relates to disability, maybe there has been a change in a disability or something, again, I would not upload it. I would just document as much as you can in the case note, or however you choose to update those documents, and then say for additional information, you can request it from the LWDA. There's not many times, unless we're dealing with youth and eligibility, that we would actually want to request information for a participant that has a disability. So don't worry about if we see it or not. We just need to be notified that that document is not uploaded because of that disability. Okay. And Laura asks, if we are reviewing and case noting both objectives, assessment, IEP quarterly, can those be one case note? That is a great question. It can be. Essentially, if a participant is enrolled, obviously that quarterly date would be the same for both the objective assessment and the IEP. But what's key here is documenting in that case note that it is both for the IEP and the objective assessment. So in whichever way you want to do that, just make sure that it's clear for monitors. Because as we move into a more quality assurance approach for monitoring this year, we will be looking for those as well as the signature, and that will be new. If there is a locally created form that is signed by the participant, can this form be uploaded in place of the IEP form in VOS? And this question was answered by Vivian. Vivian, yes. A lot of the LWDAs have their own form. We shared one during the presentation, and that was from Three Rivers, from In the Door, and they upload that. And so that is perfectly fine if you created your own form that captures all of the required information that we reviewed today. Thank you, Latanya. I'm glad that worked. And David asks, another time we would potentially get disability information would be for the exit exceptions for health, medical reasons. Yes, that would be another time. And again, David, thank you. You would want to, again, not upload that in the Worksource Georgia portal, but make documentation that if we needed it, we can request it. Thank you for bringing that up, David. And I'm glad that answered your question, Vivian.
How do we go about the signature for the IEP if it is not an option electronically? When it is updated, does the participant have to sign it again?
Okay, so it seems like that's a two-part question. So for the second part, no, the IEP only needs one. It only needs to be signed one time. And then the first part, I'm not understanding that first part. So if you want to unmute yourself, it sounds like you're saying there is not a signature line on the IEP form.
Okay, so we could follow up with that afterward to get some clarification. All right, so go ahead.
No, yeah. There is not an electronic signature line on the line on the OA. Well, I would have to ask Nicole. I don't know if she's still on. Is there a way for a participant to electronically sign the objective assessment?
Hey, Cherie. Yes, I apologize. I'll have to look into that for you. I didn't look,
Okay.
I know for the IEP ISS, but I'm looking now for the OAS. So just give us a second, or we can just follow back up with you about that.
And that, great. Then we'll make sure we follow up with you. And we'll just send that information out to everyone so that way everyone has a clear answer on that.
It came directly to me following the ISS section. The question is, will digital signatures be accepted? For example, Adobe digital signature or DocuSign. And I believe that was, yeah, for the individual service strategy.
So I want to say, yes, during COVID, I want to say there was an exception during the state of emergency where documents could be signed electronically. So let me follow up to see where we are as restrictions are being lifted, just so I'm clear in providing the right guidance to everyone regarding the electronic signatures.
Cherie, can you hear me?
Yes, I sure can. I'm here.
Hi, this is LaTanya. Yeah, we noticed that the OA in the system did not have the electronic signature.
Mm-hmm.
It was used, of course, we had our own form, so we were able to use the that. But since the OA is part of the IEP or ISS, we just assumed going forward that we would use the IEP ISS signature as the as that doc, showing that someone is signed, the participant is signed, because it is not there in the system. And maybe that's a workaround. I don't know, since it's a part of, the IEP, and you can't have the IEP or ISS without it. So that's what we had figured amongst ourselves, but we had our own form that had a signature as well. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, we'll definitely follow up. I don't know if Nicole stayed on, because maybe that was the original intent, is that those two documents are done together. And again, those are within the WorkSource Georgia portals. So they created those forms, and those are created within our region and used and shared within our region. So we'll just follow up and figure out what's the best way to go about that signature piece.
Sounds good. Well, thank you. It was a really good webinar.
Thank you so much, LaTanya. We appreciate it.
All right. Y'all have a good day.
You as well.
Hi, this is Rebecca with O'Neill with Southwest Georgia. Thank you all for the training. I just wanted a quick clarification. The one question where someone was asking, I think they were asking if the ISS or IEP needed to be signed multiple times, and then y'all had said no, just the one time. But if they're using the ISS or IEP in the system and then they're reprinting it, we go ahead and have them sign and the participant sign that second, third, however many times it's updated. Is that the correct way, or is it really just need to be signed that initial time it's developed?
Yeah, so we are looking for a signature during the initial time that it is developed. Now, if you have a separate process internally for your LWDA where you make sure that you have them signed, that is totally fine, but that's nothing that we would look for during monitoring. We're looking for that one signature with the objective assessment, and then that one signature with the IEP. Now, it was brought to our attention that I think the objective assessment doesn't have a line for a signature. And so again, we would provide that grace that if there's a signature on the ISS and the IEP, then that's fine, because we weren't aware that it wasn't allowing you to have a signature on there. But yes, we're just looking for that one signature, one on the objective assessment and one on that IEP or the ISS.
Okay, well, great. I just wanted to make sure that might actually help with COVID and all of that. If they do have issues getting it for those 90-day reviews, then we may just have them, because we're having them put the case note either way. But if they're having trouble getting signatures due to COVID, then we may just modify that and just say make sure that the case note states that it was reviewed with the participant, and then these were the changes in that. So we may do it that way if y'all are just looking for that initial signature, if they have trouble getting it for those subsequent times.
Yep, that works. And that'll, again, lessen with
Great.
you all, trying to track down that participant to get that signature also.
Right, exactly. Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you. Y'all had it was very informational, and y'all have a good day.
Thank you. You have a good one. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.